Right now we are in Barentsburg, called after one certain person, William Barents. He was really famous Dutch polar explorer, and he discovered this land in 1596. So during his expedition, he saw the land and also the mountains that ended up with peaky tops, and he decided to call this place according to what he saw. He called it Spitsbergen, that literally means peaky mountains. That's very easy. But frankly speaking, this settlement didn't appear here right after the discovery. That happened much later, only in the beginning of the 20th century. So that period of time, Norwegians found out that this area has a large amount of coal, and they decided to construct here a mine and a settlement. They started doing that, but they had lack of experience, we didn't have a lot of money, so they faced a lot of financial problems. And eventually they decided to sell here everything to the Dutch company Mieszka. Mieszka bought this land, they continued to build here a mine, and they also created here a settlement, and they called it Barentsburg, after really famous their own historical person. But this company also faced a lot of financial problems, and they also decided to sell here everything, but to the Soviet company Trust Arktikugol. That happened in 1932, and this company bought not only this settlement, but also one more, Pyramiden. And since then, these two settlements, the infrastructure, the buildings, the mine, it all belongs to this company. So I also belong to this company, but as a tour guide. Everything here belongs to it except for the land, because nowadays this land belongs to Norway. And as for the buildings that we are going to see, all of them were built right after World War II. Here, unfortunately, we have only one building that was built before the war. Others just didn't survive. But frankly speaking, here we didn't have any battles at all. But still, in 1941, there was a threat of German attack. And that's why locals decided to evacuate from this territory. And before the evacuation, they destroyed here everything. All the buildings and the mine, because they just didn't want to let the enemy capture it. That's why then people came back here in 1946. They started life from a new page. But still, all the buildings are built during the Soviet period of time. They are our historical heritage now. That's why we are trying to preserve it. And this settlement is small, but still it is a tiny version of a big city. So right here people have all the needed infrastructure. And at first I will show you some abandoned houses, the historical part of the settlement, and after that I will also show you some buildings where we live, work and spend our free time. So at first we can start with the only building that actually survived World War II. It is located right here, and we can get closer to it. So this building was built in 1935, and right here you can see a former canteen. And it was working 24 hours a day because of the mine that was also working without any stops at all. And the main feature of this canteen is in fact that food here was absolutely free for all the workers of the company. So you could come anytime you want and you could eat everything you want. And as for the food, people used to have it right here, because just at the end of the settlement of the weir, they used to have a really huge farmhouse and a greenhouse. You still can see the remains on the left side and on the right side of the road, at the end of it. So in the farmhouse, people used to have 1,000 chicken, 500 pigs, 300 cows and even several horses. So a lot of animals. And also in the greenhouse they had all the needed fruits, vegetables and even flowers for the women. And also right here on this wall we can see two paintings. So at first this painting. Here we have a general image of the polar explorer and also a short part of the poem that was written by one Russian author. It says, "Whenever you're wandering now, on the edge of every spring, you will be raving for polar routes, you will be seeing snowy dreams." Speaking about this poem, it means that it doesn't matter where you are right now. If you see Arctic once, you will definitely fall in love and you will get a strong desire to come back here. And I believe that works, because here I know some families and they are living in Barentsburg for 10, 15, even 20 years, and they're saying that this town is their own home and they don't want to live somewhere else. So I guess it's true. And also on the wall of this building we have one more picture that is located right here, and we can get closer to it right now. So right here in this picture you can see the only trees of Svalbard. But frankly speaking, trees exist here. It is possible to find them somewhere outside the settlement, but they are extremely small. Their height is not more than 30 centimeters. So they look like not trees but just tiny bushes. And speaking about wild nature, here of course we also have some wild animals. And fortunately I'm not talking about polar bears, because they just don't come directly inside the settlement. But still, there is a chance to find them somewhere outside the settlement, so we always need to remember that polar bears are somewhere close to us. But right in the settlement we have polar foxes. So 4 families of polar foxes are living here. They are running everywhere, so there is a really big chance to see them. And also we have reindeers. They live somewhere close to the settlement, but they come to the settlement quite often because they are looking for food. And also we have some marine mammals, like walruses, whales. And last centuries these animals were very valuable because they cost a lot, and people were hunting them. So I said to you in the beginning that this settlement appeared only in the 20th century. But first people came here much earlier. They started coming from the 20th century. Or from the 15th century, I'm so sorry. So at first, such people as Pamori were coming here. So they arrived in summer, then the navigation was opened. They were staying here during the whole year hunting. And next summer, they came back to the mainland with their catch. And these Pamori were thinking that this land is a part of Greenland. And for them Greenland sounded like Grönland, Grumland. That's why they used to call this place not Spitsbergen or Svalbard, but Grumland, one more third name of this place. On the left side of the road you can see a tiny wooden house. Here is a house where Pamori were living. So inside it has just one room with a stove, of course. But still it was possible to survive really harsh winters inside such a small house. And all Pamori were Christians, so they believed in God, they used to pray to Him. Unfortunately, we don't have any churches, chapels at that period of time, but still in the settlement we have our own local chapel, and you can see it right here. It looks quite old, but frankly speaking, it was built in 1998. And the main feature of any chapel is in fact that people can use it without a permanent priest. Because now in Barentsburg we don't have a permanent priest, but this chapel is working 24 hours a day and people can come there anytime just to pray. And this chapel was constructed here to commemorate a certain tragic event that happened here in 1996. That year there was a charter flight from Moscow to Longyearbyen. 141 passengers were on plane, and a plane crash happened. This plane crashed into the Opera Mountains nearby Longyearbyen, and all people with the crew died. So we lost people who were living in Barentsburg and also in Pyramiden, a lot of people, and just after them a decision was made to construct this chapel. But still, I guess that in the history of every settlement we have both positive and some tragical events. We just need to face that. But right here we have the end of the historical part of the settlement. It is very small. And now I can show you some buildings where we work, live, spend our free time. But for that we need to get back a little bit to the main street of our settlement. So you can follow me all the way. So here is the main street of our settlement. And the name of this street is Lenina Street. And frankly speaking, every city in Russia, even a small village, has Lenina Street. And all of them have one thing in common, because at the end of the street, or in the beginning, they'll have a monument of Vladimir Lenin. That's why here we also have our own local Lenin, but only his head. Right here we have the biggest building of our settlement. And actually here we have two buildings linked together. So this square part is our cultural center. So inside we have a concert hall for 300 seats. Right now about 350 people are living here. So we have a seat almost for everybody. But last century 1,000 people were living here, so it was quite a challenge to get a seat all the way. And nowadays only one guy is working in that place, and he is organizing different concerts to the people. But usually locals are taking part in these concerts because every person has some sort of a talent. And here people are dancing, they're singing, playing different musical instruments, they're reading poems. For example, the last concert here was dedicated to the Women's Day that we have on the 8th of March. And a lot of men participated in that concert just to show their own talents to the women here. And at the same time, this concert hall is a cinema, and it is possible to watch some movies. And also over there we have a library with 30,000 books. So if you want to read something, you will definitely find a book over there. And this triangle part is our sports complex. So here we have a gym, a sports hall, and even a swimming pool with a sauna. So right here, from this place, you can see one more canteen of our settlement. It is located right here, and this canteen is working, and the local name of this building is Hilton, because last century it's supposed to be a Hilton hotel, but something went wrong, so right now we have just a Hilton canteen. But still, prices there are very low. So usually locals prefer to eat there just 3 times a week. They don't cook at home quite often. But still, if you want to buy some products and cook something in your own flat, it is possible to do, because here we also have a grocery. And this grocery is located in this orange building. And speaking about payment, we are on the territory of Norway. That's why here we can't use Russian rubles in cash. The same rule was for the last century also. But last century people didn't have any credit cards to pay, and that's why they used to have special coins. These coins belonged to our company, and the name of them was bones. So people used to get the half of the salary in Russian rubles, and they were saving this money, and the half of the salary in bones. And these bones could be used only in 3 settlements: in Barentsburg, Pyramiden, and also Grumant, one more Soviet settlement that is located here on this archipelago. Nowadays we are modern, that's why we don't use bones anymore, but we have a special plastic card to pay, because sometimes in Barentsburg we have problems with the internet, and then we have these problems, our credit cards are not working, but this card is working always. So that's why it is so important to have it. And also from this place we can see some other buildings. So first, the building there we have grocery, the orange one, and also the blue one. There are living houses for our locals. And the local name of these houses here is a skyscraper. Because frankly speaking, it is extremely challenging to construct here really huge buildings. It's all about permafrost, because the ground is very movable. That's why here, for example, you can't use ordinary basement to construct buildings. This way they will crash after a few years. That's why here every really huge building, every skyscraper is standing on a special really long piles. That's why they can stand for years. And personally I arrived here in July last year, and at first I was living in that blue building. And when I entered my room, I found out that it is extremely tiny. It has just one room, and I realized that I have just a table and a bed. I also used to have a chair. I decided to sit down. I sat, and it broke, and I just fell down. So usually single people are living in such conditions. They have really small flats, and inside these flats they have just a bed, a table, sometimes chair, and also a really small bathroom. That's it. But also families are living here, and they are living in real flats with a kitchen, living room, and several rooms. So right now I am really lucky person, because I am living as a family. That's why right now I have a flat. And also from this place we can see some other buildings. For example, this bright green house. So right here now we have a museum. But last century we used to have there a Soviet consulate. And here we have the most beautiful building of the settlement. You can notice that this building even has a balcony. The only balcony in Arctic. Unfortunately, it has just decorative function, but still a balcony. Nowadays, we also have a Russian consulate, but it is located in one more building that you can see behind the greenhouse with a Russian flag all the way. I know that right now 6 people are working there, and they work and live inside this building. And people are saying that inside it looks gorgeous, with marble chairs, beautiful chimneys, classical lamps. But personally, I have never seen that with my own eyes, because you need to have a special occasion to be invited. For example, if you want to get married, or if you want to have a new passport. So maybe one day, at least as a guest of the wedding, I will get inside and I will see what is it there. Because I know that, for example, for the last 3 years, we had here 3 weddings. So still there is a chance. And 6 people are working there, and others are working in some other buildings that we are going to see when we will go across one more street of our settlement. So for that we need to go this way. So right here in this red building on the 2nd floor we have offices for our tourist managers. And also on the 1st floor we have a post office. And it looks quite beautiful inside because it is styled like an old Norwegian post office from the 20th century. And it is possible to send a card or a letter from this post office. And personally I have made a deal with my friend from Russia that we are going to exchange letters with each other. So we are writing letters, but it takes about 2 months to deliver them. So our letters are very big, they look like really huge novels, and we need to wait for the long time for the answer. But still it's worth doing that. And also here inside this post office we have some souvenirs, and we create these souvenirs with our own hands, because just behind this building we have a handicraft center. So we are making different toys, gloves, hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, a lot of things. And frankly speaking, we don't have a lot of places where we can spend our money here in Barentsburg. So we have a post office and also a souvenir shop where it is possible to buy some presents to our friends and also family. And speaking about families, so of course adults, they don't arrive here alone. Sometimes they bring here their wives, husbands and even kids. That's why here in this settlement we need to have a kindergarten and a school. And this building we have here. And it is located right here. We can get closer to it. Right here in this building we have both a kindergarten and a school. And right now in our kindergarten we have 7 kids. Also speaking about our school, we have both primary and secondary school. And in the primary school we have 10 kids, and in the secondary school we have 26. So still it is possible to study here because we have 11 classes. So after this school they can graduate, they can go to the university in the mainland. And also this building is quite beautiful painted. And here, for example, on the 1st floor we can see some marine mammals like walruses, whales. Also, of course, we have polar bears over there. And on the 2nd floor we also have some paintings of different buildings. And some of these buildings are located in Norway. For example, these colorful houses are located in Bergen in Norway.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So this way people wanted to show that we have quite friendly relationships with each other. So last century Norwegians were frequent guests here, and the same situation we have also nowadays. But at the same time we also have here some buildings that are located in Russia. For example, you can pay attention to this church with a lot of domes. So this church is located in the museum in Russian North. And it was really amazing, especially for me, to find this picture, because I used to work in that museum. So here is my previous working place. So every time when I see this picture, I'm saying hello to my old colleagues. But speaking about kids. So right now here we don't have young babies. But last century it was possible to give a birth here, and children were born right here inside this building, because here we have a former hospital and also a maternity center. So children were born, and after their birth they got special documents, and in these documents it was written that their place of birth is Norway, archipelago Spitsbergen, settlement Barentsburg. So quite unique documents. But unfortunately nowadays it is prohibited, so not only to give a birth but also to die here. So as for giving a birth, it is prohibited to do because we don't have enough doctors and facilities for that. As for dying, it is prohibited to bury people here. Once again, because of the permafrost. So the ground here has one more feature. It pushes away from the ground everything to the surface. So if you bury a person, after a few months you will see the remains on the ground. That's why a decision was made not to bury people at all. But at least children were born here, and at the age of 2 or 3 years they started going to the kindergarten. And also on this street we have one more building, and locals are calling this building the main building of our settlement. It is located just behind former hospital over there, so we can get closer to it right now to see what is it. So right here we have our mining office, and above the entrance you also can see the logo of the company and the year when it was found. It's 1931. And right here inside, of course, a director of the mine is sitting, and also we have a mining operator over there and some administrative staff like account assistants, for example. And this building at the same time also has an underground floor, and over there we have an entrance to our mine. And this mine is going from the underground floor directly inside this mountain. And all in all, the distance of this mine is about 34 kilometers. And the deepest level of the mine is 432 meters below the sea level. And this mine is still working, and it is working 24 hours a day with no weekends. So we have 4 shifts a day. Each shift lasts 6 hours. But for people who are working on the deepest level of the mine, each shift lasts 8 hours. Because only 1 hour they need to get to their working place, to the deepest level, and also 1 more hour to get back to the surface. But still, it is really prestigious to work in the mine. And last centuries especially, that was some kind of a dream to work here in that settlement, because salaries here were very high. So usually miners arrived here to work for 2-3 years, and after that they could come back to the mainland and they could buy an apartment and a car. So salaries were extremely high. Right now they are just a little bit bigger than on the mainland. So that's why nowadays usually dreamers come here just to see Arctic and to try themselves in these conditions of weather. But still, the mine is working, and the coal extraction for a year is 120,000 tons. And 30,000 tons we use right here because we are burning coal to have here electricity and warm water. But the other part we transfer to Murmansk, a city in Russian north, and people in Murmansk decide for themselves how we can use this coal. And I said to you that we have 350 people in the settlement, and the half of them are working here in the mining office. That's why people are calling this place the main building of the settlement. But personally, I believe that the main building is the building where you can have a rest, where you can meet your friends. And we have such a building here, and it is located just behind the mining office over there. So right now we can get closer to it and we will see what is it. So right here, as you can see, we have our brewery and bar. And on the first floor, through the windows, you can see some equipment. So we are using this equipment to produce our own local beer here. And it is possible to taste this beer on the second floor, where we have a bar. And it is quite strong, it has 18 degrees. And also I want to pay your attention to the wall, to the number 78. This is the latitude where we are right now. And last century there was one interesting tradition that was connected with this number. So, last century, Soviet pole explorers used to believe that if you want to become a real polar man or polar woman, you need to drink a certain alcohol, and the degree of your alcohol drink should match the latitude where you are right now. In our case, 78, of course. That's why here, people used to mix moonshine with water to get the needed number. Do you know what is moonshine? Yeah. So some kind of... But if someone just doesn't know, moonshine is some kind of man-made vodka. Really strong alcohol drink, almost 100 degrees. So nowadays it is illegal to produce moonshine here or to bring it from the mainland. But still, there is one more option for us how to become a real polar man or polar woman here nowadays. So right now we are using Austrian rum named straw instead. It has 80 degrees, and we also have one more variant of this rum with 60 degrees. And people add sweet liqueurs to that rum. That's why it is not so horrible, not so strong. And the local name of this cocktail is See You Tomorrow. And I can speak for myself that I am a real polar woman today, because I've tasted it. It's quite delicious. So lots of people come here to try this cocktail or some other dishes, and those who are staying here for a couple of days are very lucky, because in the evening they can have a couple of shots here, and then they just need to make a few steps to reach their room number. Because right here we have a hostel, and very close to us we also have a hotel. So all in all, these two buildings can accommodate about 100 guests. So we are always glad to see here some new people. And right here in the hotel we also have one more bar. So quite small settlement, but even two bars are functioning here. And right now we will get closer to this building. So before I will tell you a few words about one more bar, I want to pay your attention to one more building that is located here. So this building is our hospital that is opened now. And it is quite big, but frankly speaking, only 3 doctors are working there. We have a surgeon, a dentist, and a therapist. That's it. So right here we can get first medical help. But if something is really serious with a person, he or she can be transported to the Longyearbyen with a company helicopter, or even to the mainland, to Oslo or Tromsø. So still it is possible to get some help here. But of course locals don't prefer to go to this building quite often. Instead they are spending their free time in that bar or another bar. And this bar is called Krasin, after one really famous icebreaker, Krasin. And inside it looks like a saloon of this icebreaker, where all the crew used to gather all together. So right now we will get inside just to have a look how this salon look like, and over the way it is going to be the end of the excursion, and then you will have some free time. But at first, you are welcome. So right now we are inside our bar that is called after really famous icebreaker. So right now this icebreaker is standing in St. Petersburg. It's just a museum. People don't use it anymore. But last century, for 80 years, this icebreaker was cracking the ice just to let all the boats to move in the sea. And right now we can just imagine ourselves like a real sailors. And you can sit here, relax, you can have some warmth here. And here is the end of the excursion. So thank you very much for your attention. Right now you have time just to look through the saloon, through the bar, or you can spend your time outside walking across the streets. It is possible to do. But I remind you about the time. At 3:10 we need to gather all together near about the souvenir shop, and we will go to the port. Before that, just take your time. Yeah. So once again, thank you for your attention.